gentlemen, it's indeed a great privilege for all of us this evening. We have got Mr. Ulf Ingemar Hanning from Sweden who is visiting us. Please put your hands together to give a hearty welcome to him.
Thank you.
On behalf of ITFT Education Group, Institute of Technology and Future Management Trends, we extend a very hearty welcome to Mr. Hanning. Chandigarh, he is coming for the first time. Hearty welcome to you over here.
Thank you very much.
Now, Mr. Hanning is a consultant and advisor with the international experience to various universities. For the last 2 decades, last 20 years, he had been helping in India also, in Indonesia, South Africa, Taiwan, USA, and of course Sweden, where he is based. I was just talking to him a little while before and I asked something about Russia. So we were just sharing some common threads which I'll take on a little later. Now, there were 2 latest conferences which he was associated with. One of them was the 20th International Business Conference, that is Russia and Europe, growth strategies under a new global economic model. And the second interesting international conference that was appealing to me also, and I requested him if we focus on that. That was basically the economic crisis and suggestion for the future on business education. What is the effect of the economic crisis on business education? And when we take the views across the northern hemisphere, particularly he was talking about Athens and Greece and a couple of other places. But let's take a global perspective from him. Let's understand what crisis I would say he visualizes or he experiences, and what inferences we as an Indian can draw out of that so that that situation doesn't prevail in some other countries world over. With these words, on behalf of my entire team, they are my strength, they are my soul, they are my heart, they are my vision, and they are the people with whom we run the organization. We have got tourism, we have got hospitality, we have got airlines, we have got media entertainment department, we have got service industry management, and we have got information technology. We have got research, we have got education, we have got consultancy, we have got skills development, and the most important challenge, how to generate more and more employment and entrepreneurship venture. The gentleman sitting on my left is an authority who is a modern Shakespeare on textile industry. He is the person who deals with all the apparels and the clothes, how to look smart, how to walk smart, how to talk smart.
Shall I leave immediately?
So that industry is also with us over here. With these words, we request you to kindly address us, enrich us with your vision, with your knowledge, with your reservoir, and with your cerebrum. Mr. Hanning.
City and to this part of India. However, I've been to India a lot before, more times than I can count, 30, 40 times maybe, during the last 45 years. I'm a member of the board. Is it necessary?
No.
I'm a member of the board of the Singhania University in Udaipur, and I have also been attached to the IGNOU University in Delhi, and some other universities I give lectures and so on. You want me to make some comment on the present situation, and you are all, of course, well aware of the situation in the world today. We have economic crisis, and that crisis depends on mostly the bubbles that created by the housing and by the mortgage. It started in the United States, and one of the biggest banks, they got bankruptcy, and it tends that if you blow up the economy too much and you spend your money then you will create a situation which needed to be dealt with. And I will say, that nobody could, with the economic theories of today, foresee exactly what should happen. You are very lucky in India, I think, or maybe not so lucky, I come to that, but you are not affected at all as much as Europe and United States. And to my mind, why is it that you are not so affected like the rest of the world? Well, let me remind you of your own figures of import-export, and you are a huge internal market. Of course, you have the newest figures yourself, but about 1 year ago, it was only 7% of your total production which came from the export industry, and 93% was your own home market. And that's one very crucial point why you are not infected, because what happens in the rest of the world affects you less than, at least less over a short period of time than, for instance, my own country, which has 83% coming from export industry and only 17% from home market. So we can say Sweden has no home market at all. You have a huge home market, and you should be proud of that, and that's one part of the explanation. As you know, there is a crisis in Europe. Sweden is not affected as much as actually the rest of Europe, and that depends that we had a very wise government who didn't blow up the bubble as much as other countries, and so relatively we are in good shape right now. But of course, you understand, with 83% of the gross national product coming from export industry, we are in danger over time if this cannot be solved. And most countries in the world are dependent on each other. They have an interconnection which is enormous. And if you see the relationship by the world's biggest market, which actually, I meant, of course, United States, it's the biggest market, but the EU market is even bigger, in fact, but it's not one country, it's many countries. And they are connected with a huge exporting neighbor to you, China. So they are interconnected enormously. So, you know, they stick together in the crisis situation because most of the not so advanced products, they are produced today in China, and they are sold in the United States, and so the dollars ends up in China, which lends them back to United States, so they can buy more from China. And if they don't lend them back, they cannot buy anything more from China, and that will be a crisis in China, of course. So they are very closely related. And you have probably heard about the crisis in Greece, which is absolutely terrible. But that crisis, to my mind, could actually have been foreseen, because Greece has been in a state of bankruptcy since the very beginning of Greece, modern Greece. And there is a very interesting article I made a comment on by a Frenchman called About. It's an English name meaning something else, but his name was that. And he's pointed out that Greece was in the state of bankruptcy, and if they didn't get loan from England, France and Germany, they would not exist at all. And they have no inside vision of their own crisis, so they continue to behave as there is no crisis. This Mr. he died about 120 years ago. But when you read his article, it could be written yesterday as well. There is one thing in his work which points out that maybe it's not yesterday, because he points out that England also gave money to Greece. They don't. It's only France and Germany. And if Angela Merkel says you will not have any more money, then there will be state bankruptcy immediately in Greece. And of course they have a very, very serious situation. But also other countries like Portugal, Ireland has just come out of the crisis. Spain and Italy is on the way in crisis. The same effects there. And the situation is that could one actually have foreseen that this should happen? We have a lot of theories, economic theories, and we hope that they are helping us, and they are not. Is there anything wrong with them? Maybe not, maybe yes. In your life, you are not always, in every situation, behaving wisely. Are you? No. None of us are. We make stupid things, and I mean, one part of the foundation of democracy is that you have the right to make the wrong decision, and sometimes we do. So it's very difficult to foresee this. And there is what we can say is maybe you heard of the butterfly effect. The butterfly effect was of course made by a weatherman who tried to find the algorithm for how the weather is behaving. And he also gave this vision that if a butterfly in Brazil lifts from a flower, there could be a storm in Atlanta or something. And could it really be very small effects creating big situation in economics? Yes, it could actually be. And economy, concerning economy, as Newton's way, as a big clock. And if you know exactly how the clock is constructed, how many wheels and how they grip into each other, then you can foresee the future. And that has been the vision for maybe hundreds of years since Newton did, that you could actually look at this as a big clock, and if you could just figure out and understand how the clock is working, then you can also foresee the future. But we have some, well, that was the general idea in most sciences up to 40 years ago, about 1960s, when you suddenly discovered a new mathematical theory called the catastrophe theory. A very small flaw in one situation could actually create a huge unforeseeable catastrophe. And that was first discovered in engineering, but also when they started in other sciences to investigate this. You know, I'm talking about this because once I was mathematician, professor of mathematics, and then together with some colleagues in actually a conference in Greece and also in Russia, we discussed that this situation should actually affect the education in economics and economic sciences. We should add a little of this butterfly effect, butterfly economics, somebody calls it now.
Business education.
Business education, because it will help you to understand difficult situation better, I think. Economics is not like physics or mathematics, absolutely not. It's more like psychology. It's, you know, situations in psychology and in other social behavioral sciences, they know about these things. You are not behaving exactly very wisely in every situation. There is no algorithm for how to choose a husband or choose a wife. You choose for completely different reasons, which may be a part of our DNA or what you like, our biology. But we are not choosing our husband or wife according to the absolutely best prospects. There are other considerations. And we are not choosing in other situations concerning economy, concerning the life standard you want to have, what could be the absolute best for you, because of course you don't know what's best for you. And even if you know that this is a better choice, I like the other choice better, so you make. And all these things, I think, should have, you should be aware of them in the education of economics and business administration, because this is the real life. And today it's much more, the business administration and economics is much more like physics. You have algorithms, you have formulas, and you expect them to be correct. And time over time it shows that you cannot expect them to be like physics. You cannot expect them to be like any natural sciences. And that's actually there are 3 laureates of Nobel Prize this year in economics, and and 2 of them don't agree with each other at all. They have completely opposite view of how economics works. But they are both laureates, and they have both observed the same difficulties, that you should try to more understand the basics of human behavior, even in economic terms. But they don't like each other at all. And they are, both sides are convinced that the other part is completely wrong. But they have pointed out, and that's why they got the prize, pointed out the impact and the necessity to observe this in the science. And my point is that you should also, of course, observe this in the education. So I think we should all, economists working in universities, in education, try to bring some element of this into the education to help to increase the understanding of how these very complex and difficult situation actually works.
If somebody has got some question, you can ask them some specific question. And anybody who asks an intelligent question, you will be treated by Mr. Hammond.
There are always only intelligent questions.
Beginning is always a difficult,
Sure.
I just remember when you said Sweden.
In Sweden, 83% of our revenue from the gross national product come from export industry of mining directly, iron mining. Actually, 100 years ago, the biggest iron mine in the world was in Sweden. Now it's not anymore because they found the even bigger one in Australia and Brazil and other places. But we are still very dependent on material from natural resources. We don't have any oil in Sweden. They have in Norway, but not in Sweden. And we have also we export directly from the mines. We also, of course, make special kind of steels, for instance, high-tech steel, high-tech metallurgic things. But we also, of course, have mechanical industry. We have Volvo, you know, making cars, and we have Scania making cars, buses, and we make airplanes. I don't think you buy this kind of airplanes in. I think you like the United States airplanes, but many countries like this plane. It's the high-tech planes and high-tech industry.
From scratch to finale, the complete plane, or some parts of it, or some components of it? Because like you have the Airbus and you have the Boeing. These are two ready-made, you know, which you have got.
Yes.
So is it the completely assembled or is it some parts?
No, it's some parts.
Some parts.
I can tell you the Volvo industry, they made an announcement about 10 years ago concerning the Ariadne rocket. The Swedish company they said in the advertisements, we only make the engine. So the engine for the Ariadne rocket is Swedish engine. And then suddenly Ericsson Space, they discovered that that was a very clever thing to say. So they said, we only make the computers and the antennas.
I see.
So the antennas and the computers, they are Swedish. And the engine is Swedish. The rest, and what is the rest? It's made in France. So, but that's normal, as you pointed out, by Airbus. I mean, maybe 10 countries are making components to the Airbus. And that's the situation, going back to economy, that's the situation in the world for advanced products normally today, which means, of course, that maybe if you are not selling any Airbuses, maybe 10 countries are suffering from this, not only one country. So that's how the economy on this level are interconnected, which makes it more difficult.
One is the agriculture, then is the manufacturing, and then is the services.
The services industry in Sweden is underdeveloped, according to, but it's growing enormously now, because especially the Germans, but also Europeans and from United States, they discovered that Sweden is a very beautiful country. It's a very big country. If you make square kilometers, it's a big country. If we talk about the population, we are in, the total population is a little less than Delhi. 9 million in total. So it's much empty space. But what people like to see is the nature. We don't have the Taj Mahal or buildings like that in Sweden, but we have other things you can see. Here you have a huge, to my mind, possibility for expanding your hospitality industry. It's enormous because you are so old, cultural country, one of the oldest actually. And this is a resource you must develop, and you are of course doing that. That's what you're doing.
How's the spa industry over there? Because people generally talk about Swedish massage. So the components, particularly the equipment which is being used in the spa industry, are they indigenous or equipment comes from outside and the human resources from Sweden?
You
What
talk about Swedish massage.
Yes.
Well, if you go to Sweden, you will find that almost nobody knows anything about Swedish massage. It's something completely different.
It's only outsider knows.
Only outsiders know.
Okay.
And I don't. Well, I'm not a specialist of this. You have
Okay.
already contact with others who are special. Is there such a thing actually? I mean, is it, or
Yeah.
maybe it's a trademark more than
It's a trademark. It's a trademark. See, there are four components: Turkish massage, Swedish massage, Thai massage,
Yes.
and then India's Kerala Ayurvedic massage.
Yes, I've heard
The
about
herbals
that.
and all that,
Yeah.
And there's one more which we have that which Sanjay Khan is having, huh?
Lomi Lomi massage.
Huh?
Lomi massage.
No. There's another one, water therapy that. There's one more, na? Water therapy. There's another one. Which one they do?
Immunotherapy.
No, ma'am. There's another one which they use. I'm just not getting the name. I'll get Turkish, Swedish, Thai, Ayurveda. There's one more.
Panchkarma.
No, but that's a part of Ayurveda. That's a part of Ayurveda.
Well, I think you are probably more familiar with Swedish massage than anybody in Sweden.
Sir, one thing, you said the population is very low as much as in Delhi. What is your literacy ratio?
Literacy rate.
Well, it's
Education scenario, education system.
literacy is in the the UNESCO, they are doing every year this, and some countries are classified as 100%, and Sweden is classified as 100%.
Oh.
But of course that is not true.
Yeah.
Maybe in 99 or something like that.
Okay.
Because we have, of course, people who cannot read and write, and so. And we have also rather open borders, which also means that we get a little less because we have a lot of refugees from other countries, from Syria, from Iraq, from Iran,
Okay.
and they were not literate in their own country, and when they come to us as refugees, they are of course not literate in our country either. So, but it's close to 100%.
So that means
In the Scandinavian countries, particularly when we talk about the Norway, the Finland, the
Mm.
Sweden, and the Denmark,
Mm.
out of these four, when you take into how do you see the homogeneity, or as an elder brother or as an elder sister, Sweden, how does it play the role with the other countries, Scandinavian countries?
Well, we are the biggest, even
We are
if
the biggest,
in population.
Geographically,
And also geographically, we are the
Yes,
biggest
yes.
of the countries. So of course we have a little of the role of big brother to the other countries. But actually, Norway is the richest country in the world.
Norway.
Norway. They have no national debt. And you,
No?
no,
No national debt.
no national debt. They have billions and billions of dollars in their funds because they are not using the money. They are putting the oil money in funds for the future, to invest for the future, and so they are in that sense the richest country in the world because there is no debt at all. And that's very rare, as you know. We have, of course, we have a goal that the debt should not be more than a certain percentage of the total economy.
Yes.
And I think most countries have that.
Yes.
And there are a couple of countries which unfortunately is way, way beyond that.
Okay.
And some of the countries are countries if you're not studying the subject, maybe you surprise you. One of the worst countries in the world concerning this is Japan. But Japan is the third biggest economy. But they managed to make it afloat. It's very interesting that they have such huge national debt. And same goes for United States, of course. The national debt is huge, mostly owned by China. And there are countries who are, we mentioned Greece. Greece is a total disaster.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Portugal,
Spain, Italy is close.
Yeah, yeah. And some portions of France also have come into the clutches now.
Yes. You know, Italy and
Spain.
Yeah. No, and France, they are actually economically divided if you look closer. The northern part of Italy is a very rich country. The southern part of Italy is a very poor country.
Yes, yes.
And together is a, normal country maybe.
Yes.
And the same started to go for France.
Yes, yes.
They are different parts. And it also means that the economy, talking about that.
How do you see the future scenario now, a couple of years ahead? How do you see?
It's very, very difficult, of course, to make predictions.
Okay.
But I think that the Eurozone, not all countries in the
European Union.
They are not members of the Euro. Sweden is not, for instance, and Denmark and England is not members. They are fulfilling the requirements to be in the Eurozone, but have chosen not to be in the Eurozone.
Okay.
Some countries are not in the Eurozone because they do not fulfill the requirements.
Okay.
But I think one very difficult situation is the euro. The euro must be stabilized. It's not stabilized now, according to my mind. So they must find a way to do that, and that depends in very large proportion on what Germany is doing, because they are financing other countries
Yes.
today.
Now that's very important scenario, because it has also been conveyed that Germany, whatsoever they are manufacturing, they wish to sell. Once they will sell, then only they will get the profits and all. So basically all these countries, those are passing through the economic crisis. Germany is giving them money also, then selling the equipment also, and then taking the back route of the money also.
Exactly what the situation I told you about United States and China.
Yes.
Germany is exactly as you pointed out in the same situation.
Yes. Yes.
They are actually giving money to the poorer countries, so they can buy German products, and so they get the money back again, and so they lend them once again. And so Germany is the main engine actually in the Eurozone, and of course it's an important country in the
countries prefer, they devote a lot of time, like if you see that their own language, native language being used and promoted and developed, quite a bit what I noticed. So what is the present scenario?
The present scenario is about the same in all Nordic countries.
Okay.
Up to the bachelor's level, most of the education is in the local language, Swedish language in Sweden.
Okay.
In the master and PhD level, in Sweden we give almost everything in English language.
Okay.
I cannot say that we give everything, it depends. It's a little silly if you only have a class of master students and all of them are Swedish. It's a little silly to make the courses in it. But if there are one foreign student who needs English, all the courses will go in English. So on the advanced level, we give almost all education today in English language, but up to and including bachelor level, it's in Swedish language. And it's the same in Norway and Denmark. Finland is a little special because it's a so special language. And it's not related to the Nordic country languages. I mean, if you are normally bright, you will understand and knows one of the languages, for instance Swedish. You can understand Norwegian and Danish languages also, but you cannot absolutely not understand a word of Finnish language because it's so different. I think you have the same situation here. They are in different states. Different languages are close to each other.
Yes.
They are understandable at least.
Dialects
And everything. But if you go to a completely different part, I mean, Bengal, for maybe you don't understand at all because it's completely different from the mainstream of Indian languages.
Any question from anyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to understand from you, sir, that what is the education system in your country? Like, what I mean is that up to what age is the school, like, and then what is the graduation? Like here, normally in India, graduation is of 3 years. Right? I want to understand this system of your country. Plus, I would like to know that what percentage of people go for higher education? Like, if you talk of graduation, post-graduation, or PhD.
Okay. Our school system includes 12 years of education before you can go to the
It's
bachelor.
exactly like India.
Okay. So it's 12 years education before you go to bachelor.
Okay.
Bachelor level is 3 years, and we had what we could call a master level, a local Swedish master level, which was an extra year. That's disappearing. So now the master level is more like the international standard. That's after bachelor you have a 2-year master level, and after that we have the PhD level, which we try to make international, but it's at least 4 years now. But it should be 3 years, right? I mean, American standard. But it's longer in Sweden right now, but probably over time changing to, I think this standard with 12 years plus 3 years plus 2 years plus 3 years is going to be world standard. And it's not right now, but it's most countries approach this. And I think it's like you have in India.
One more point was coming to mind, very interesting. Somewhere I read that Norway spends a maximum percentage of their total GDP on the research as compared to other countries in the world.
Yes.
Norway's research is very strong.
It's very strong. And it's a political thing, of course, because it wasn't strong.
Okay.
And they decided that now we must depend on something else. Just saving oil is not good enough. And so they spend a huge amount of the resources in the funds on research, because they have to build special industry. They understand completely that the oil will not last forever. So you have to widen the perspective of and they have a lot of money, so they can do that. In Sweden we have also a very high percentage, because we have a very high percentage of research in the industry. So maybe the percentage in the national yearly budget is not the highest, but if you add what the industry, we are close to the highest. The industry spends about the same amount as the state. It's about 3% each. And you also asked about the percentage going to higher education. Some years ago, the Swedish government decided that the goal was that 50% of the Swedish population should have university education of some sort. We are not there now. We are maybe, but we are closing in. Maybe something like 40% of the Swedish population today have some kind of, I'm not saying all of them have bachelor's level, but they have part of bachelor, they have university education of some sort. And the goal is still 50%, and we now they raised it, it should be even more, our government says, but it's difficult to pass 50% for many reasons. One of the reasons is that what we traditionally call university education, there are other educations that also are a great need. I mean, you have the skill and intelligence of your hand. I mean, technical industry, weaving industry, textile industry. We have in Sweden the only school of textiles in the Nordic countries, the only one. And I was attached and working for this university as a consultant, as a head of planning so I have to build this industry actually. Well,
the Swedish looms, of course, I know, weaving looms are very, very
Swedish.
But yes, you said what is, you said 40% of your populations, your younger generations,
Yeah.
bachelor's degree.
no, not bachelor's degree, but they don't, maybe not 3 years, but they have some years
above this.
above the normal school level.
So what is the status of unemployment?
Well, it's a difficult question actually, because it's not, you must adapt, of course, to your interest, to your skills, but also if you want to have a job, you must consider the employment market, of course. Everybody cannot be an archaeologist, for instance. That's, of course, a very advanced education. But if everybody should be that, there were too many of them. And actually, the unemployment rate in Sweden is very high for Swedish standards. It's a little more than 7%, and for academics, it's about half of that, 3.5. And as you understand, the unemployment rate, what should it be? Should it be zero? Well, it cannot be, I think, because you have education of one kind, and the job is somewhere else, 1,000 kilometers there, and you don't want to go, and so you are unemployed. And that goes for not only academic situations, it goes for every situation. You are not in the right place. And how many percent will that type of unemployment normally be in Sweden, or, to my mind, in any country? And if you look at the figures, I think the unemployment rate due to the jobs and the educated people are not at the same place, will be about 2%. So it's very difficult to go under 2% unemployment rate in any country, I would say. And in other countries it's much higher. There are some countries, well, if you go to the other countries, it will be 40% or something like that.
That means most of your people are employed in mining, wood products, and especially through the high street. These kind of industries, I think they will be attracting most of the job. People who are taking the technical education or other educations.
Well, there is a switch in Sweden actually. the girls are more and more getting higher education than the men. So it's very difficult to understand why it's so. But there was a switch during 1990s. It was about the same, and now there are more girls in almost any academic education than men. Even if in traditionally manly education as engineering and like that, it's mostly girls now. So we men, we must be home husbands, I think.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henning. It was wonderful to have you with us over here.